Hi everyone, I'm Jasleen from Books to Door. Welcome to our live. We were here earlier on this morning with Gemma. I'm going to invite her just now as well. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Just give us a moment to invite Gemma and we'll get started. So here we go. So great to have some of you on board. Hi, Gemma.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Nice to see you again. We've got quite a few people joining us already, so thanks everybody for being here. To start again, I'm Jasleen from Books to Door, and we're here with Gemma, who's a children's author and works with Sweet Cherry Publishing, who aren't on the live, but they'll be in all the comments, and you can find them at Sweet Cherry Publishing as well. So thanks everybody. Hopefully at the 4 o'clock slot today, we were here earlier on this morning, but hopefully we might have some kids joining us as well. So if you've got any questions and everything, please feel free to pop them in the comments, and we'll come to them sort of at the end of the session at about 4:30. Ask anything you like, keep it clean, and we'll be able to answer them for you. So Gemma, I don't know if you want to just do a quick introduction.
Yes, so as Justine said, I have been children for quite a few years. How many? So that will reveal how old I am. And I've been working with Harry for about 2.5 now, doing a variety of different, and they're a brilliant company to work for. And we'll talk more about the books that I've been writing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I've got some of them behind me. So yeah, lots of lovely books. We're going to start actually, Gemma, with a quick fire round just to get everybody sort of excited, and by all means, if you want to answer some of the questions, guys, then please do, and pop them in the comments as well. But over to you, Gemma. So what are you reading right now?
I am reading called A Secret Thread, which isn't it's actually my book. So I meet up a group of lovely ladies weeks and read a book, and that's what we're all reading at the moment. It's really good. Sometimes I don't know the books, but this one's really good.
Great. So that was a single thread that Gemma's reading. And then the next question is, so what was the first book you ever wrote?
It kind of depends what you mean by book, because I started off writing mainly so annuals and sticker books and things like that. So, but the first long form kind of chapter book I wrote was based on a cartoon series called Miraculous Ladybug, which if anybody who've got young children watching, they might have heard of it, but it was like a kind of screen to book adaptation of that. Like they're action heroes, and yeah, that was really good. It was a really good introduction to sort of adapting readers, really.
Yeah, great. Hopefully some of you will recognise that one as well. Okay, great. So, these are in no particular order, but is there a book out there that you wish you'd written but didn't? So is there one that you thought, or could have written better, maybe?
Never been presumptuous enough to say that I could that better. But there are thousands and thousands of books that I wish that I was clever enough to write, and I mean, obviously, kind of all the greats, all the Jane Austens. There's a lovely book, one of my favourite, called Where the Crawdads Sing, which is just really beautiful and really well put together, and yeah, the descriptive writing is just mind, really.
Great. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions left. If you could have any author at your dinner party, whenever that may be, who would it be and why?
Now, you did ask me that. I've had a...
Have you changed your mind?
I haven't changed my mind at all. I think I'm going to stick with Austen, Bronte sisters, Mary Shelley, and all the kind of women who were doing it when it wasn't the norm. yeah, that I think good night. And they'd all look down their noses at me and do things that I'd been doing to their great works of fiction.
Yeah, actually, that's a really great question for anybody that's joined and wants to answer for themselves. You know, if you've got an author out there that you would like to have at your dinner party, let us know. Feel free to comment in the sections below. And then finally, we are talking about adaptations here, and we've got obviously the Jane Austen collection. Which comes first, book or movie? And how do you how do you decide between the two?
Definitely comes first. It's an adaptation of a book, and a film's coming out. I'd always say try and read the book first, because that is how the original storyteller envisaged their story being told. However, having said that, there are a lot of films that the adaptations are a lot better, and probably going to lose a lot of followers for saying this, but I would dare to say that the Harry Potter are probably better than the books, just because they're more action packed. But yeah, that's quite a controversial thing to say, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's a case of, yeah, probably I think we've grown up with book first and then follow up with the film or whatever the adaptation afterwards. So that's good. But today we are here really to talk about this incredible Jane Austen collection. So this is jam-packed. It's got 7 kind of sort of iconic Jane Austen titles, and Gemma, obviously you're going to tell us a lot more about this, but this has been published by Sweet Cherry, and it's aimed at sort of 7, 8, 9-year-olds to really understand classic British literature, but it has been modified and it has been modernised. So do you want to start and tell us a little bit about it, please?
Yeah, well, shall I talk about kind of how we started? Was basically I got an email from one of the lovely editors at Sweet Cherry. I've done a couple with those guys before, and they just approached me and said, would this be something you're interested in? And I literally had to stop myself from bouncing up and down in my chair, because I'm a massive Jane Austen fan. I'm wearing Pride and Prejudice t-shirt as we speak, and just have read the books times. And at the time I had an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, so my 8-year-old was the sweet spot of where we were pitching the books to. So yeah, it was absolutely wonderful to get the commission, and there was this intense pressure because obviously I loved the book so much. I knew so many people, like my mum and my sister, and my friend, a couple of friends who absolutely adored Jane Austen too, and they did feel like this pressure to get it right. And yeah, so then I read the novels before adapting, and I also watched a few sort of film and TV adaptations as well, just to see how other people had looked at the storyline and the story arcs and all the characters, to see what sort of characters could be shaved off and what storylines could be shaved off to make it more succinct. So I did one book at a time and tried to do my best and tried to think that, you know, a mum who loved Jane Austen's, they picked up the book and read it, would they be happy with the result, kind of thing. That's how I wrote them, really.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I think that you just kind of touched upon something there, is that, well, Jane Austen has been around for 200 plus years, but we've all at some point grown up with it, haven't we? And we want our children to grow up with it, and we want it to remain and kind of stay there. So having this almost sort of introductory version and step into it is really nice to be able to do from a young age. And the books have been illustrated as well to really complement the stories, which is lovely. So I'll just I'll show you just the inside of one here. So they've got so they're really sort of approachable for children as well. So each page has got just a really sort of subtle black and white illustration on each one, which helps to bring some of the characters or the settings to life, and that can really help to explain some of the more sophisticated language or the more complicated plots that were spoken about or used at that time, that can help to really bring it to life.
I think the illustrations are pitched really well, because so in Pride and Prejudice, for example, there's obviously 5 sisters and they all look similar ages, but illustrators manage to do is to capture each one of their personalities with either like a kind of a raised eyebrow or hair. And it's a really nice way of blocking out as well, because these books, I feel, are kind of for children who are being introduced to chapter books. So the chapters are only sort of 2 to 3 pages long, and each sort of chapter will have a couple. It's a great way of getting them into it and keeping their interest.
Yeah, and the great thing about this, so in the collection we've got, so I'll go through them actually. So we've got Pride and Prejudice, we've got Northanger Abbey, so you've got the full collection here, Persuasion, we've got Emma as well. We'll recap all of these for you. Mansfield Park, Love and Friendship, and then we've got also Sense and Sensibility. But the great thing is, Gemma, if you've got this collection, you don't need to read it in any particular order, do you? And you know, would you recommend one to start with? How do you reckon parents, and how would you recommend that parents or children kind of tackle this collection?
It kind of all depends where your starting point is, really. If you know the novels already and that's why you've bought them, then maybe just start with your favourite, or even start with one that you're not so familiar with. If you don't know stories at all, then any of them are good to start with, because you'll be learning the story as well, reading it to your child. So no, although they've got, novel is about family and romance, and they've all got themes, they're all very different and they have very different atmospheres to them. So yeah, just pick one, pick your favourite colour.
Have you got a favourite then? So when you started as well, did you start with saying, I'm definitely going to write this one first, or I'm going to save my favourite till the last? How did you tackle that?
Definitely. I definitely chose, so I think I did either Mansfield Park or Persuasion first, because they were the two that I wasn't as familiar with. And I remember sort of planning out which one I was going to do when. And I always knew I was going to end with Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, because they were the ones that I knew the most. I think they are kind of regarded as the most popular ones. So yeah, I definitely did it in a certain order.
And when it comes to writing then, so because you're going to read a short extract for us, aren't you, from one of the books? But when it comes to writing then, do you have to be in the zone? Do you need to be in a certain place? And how do you kind of get your head down and focus on it?
I did. We've moved house about 3.5 weeks ago, and we're still, husband's working at home at the moment, obviously.
Yeah.
And we're figuring out who goes where. So we've it's out for the bedroom at the moment where one of us works, but usually it has to be when I'm not going to have too many distractions, so I can do work, sort of admin work, when the kids are around and playing. But when I'm writing, I'm able to headspace with
Yeah, no, that's nice. And that same goes for reading, doesn't it, as well? You need to find your nice space to have that with time with your children, because that's really important. But maybe we'll come back to that. I don't know if you want to do a short extract from your favourite or one of your favourites.
I did one from Pride and Prejudice, so I thought I'd do a different one. And I'm through. It's really short, but it's from Northanger Abbey, and there is a big theme in Northanger Abbey is about Catherine, who is the heroine of the story, is kind of obsessed with Gothic novels, so scary, and yeah, there she is. And she has been invited to go. She's really excited because she wants this sort of Gothic haunted house that she's got in her mind. So this is her arriving at the Abbey. Northanger Abbey was everything Catherine had dreamt it would be. Tall towers loomed over a deep moat and cast shadows that seemed to run for miles. The grey walls were dotted with dark pointed windows. Everything looked cold, dark and mysterious. So Catherine was disappointed to find inside was warm and welcoming. And there's a really lovely illustration of this here. So it's quite clear that the illustrators had to think about how this would look, and they've got Catherine here looking out all hopeful to see what it's going to be like. But yeah, she gets quite actually quite, in the book it says it's quite modern, but obviously modern for Regency times, I imagine.
Yeah, you're right. They have really taken the detail of each illustration and really, you know, it sounds silly, doesn't it? But they've really sort of given it so much thought to help and bring it to life. So did you have much input on that, or do you kind of, is it a collaborative process?
No, no input at all. So I was literally just, I was waiting to see it, and I was looking up because the lovely editors at Sweet Cherries and PDFs of the book before it was made into a proper book, just to see how it was coming to life. And I was really, really pleasantly surprised at how sweet the illustrations were.
Oh, lovely. So I think just before we had the extract, we were just sort of talking about how obviously important it is to read. And have you got any sort of tips or advice for parents that are joining us today? Just about sort of, you know, Jane Austen, this collection is about moving into chapter books and moving away from kind of picture stories and things like that. Have you got any advice or tips for parents on how to you know, make children feel confident as readers and broaden their horizons into different interests?
Well, I'm definitely not an expert, but I can speak from kind of being a mum and books for quite a while. And I would just say, choose books that you love and that they. So we were chatting earlier today about how we really miss the library. So even my house is quite full of books, we still loved going to the library, and it was always the library books that they would go to first at night time because they're the ones that they chose. So I would just say, you know, even if it's a big kind of hardback book on tractors or Great Fire of London or what that they are interested in at that time, just anything. You could read anything, graphic novel, you know, picture book. It doesn't really matter as long as they're reading and you're enjoying that time with them.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. And I think your children are, is it 7 and 10?
And 10.
Yeah, so my little one, he's only 3, but we've been reading since, you know, he was months old, and from the sensory books to everything, you know, and building his collection in his library as well. And even from a young age, he's been, you know, very confident saying, you know, I want to read this book and I want to read that book. And actually at his nursery, they've got a really fantastic sign which says there's no app to replace the lap. And, you know, that is important about reading, and to be able to continue that as children grow is just really important. And at the moment, you know, he's into certain things, you know, diggers and whatever it is, and that's fine. But as they grow older, it's really, you know, I want him to broaden his horizons and his interests and pick up all different books, including classic literature. So I think that these books are a really fantastic way that make it approachable and also kind of not too overwhelming for parents actually as well, to kind of get stuck into it. And then the other thing that we've not mentioned is that all of these books come with an audio, so you can scan this QR code and sort of listen as you're going along. So if you're trying to encourage your child to become more of an independent reader, that can be a great way to do it. But there's, you know, just I think everything is as a whole, the package of these books, the collection and everything you get with it, just makes them really appealing to kids. And another thing I also forgot to mention is that we've been talking about writing so much, that Sweet Cherry have also included in this collection a really lovely journal. So the great thing about reading stories is that sometimes then children will go on to write book reviews, or it can spur them on to start writing their own short stories and things. And then they've got this lovely book collection to be able to do that. So I guess a question I've got for you then, Gemma, is do your kids inspire you to write, and what kind of books are they interested in, and how do you tackle that?
Yeah, they're definitely into books. My eldest is, so she's 10, so it's really nice. We've got to that point at the moment where I'm giving her books that I remember loving. So Roald Dahl and she's read all the Harry Potter. And I'm slightly older to have read those as children, but I read them as a young adult, and we talk about those together, and she will read, pass it on to me to read, and we'll sort of start chatting about books together, which is really nice. And then my youngest, we still have sort of every night we sit and read. So they are definitely, they're definitely a sort of inspiration to make the stories good. Have a child that you have writing for it, always easier.
Yeah, no, it is definitely, and it's nice to it's nice to sort of still cuddle up and be able to read, isn't it? So I have got a sort of a cheeky question, I suppose, for you. But you've obviously worked on this adaptation, and that's available now. But what are you working on next? Can you tell us? Can you give us a sneak peek, or what have you worked on recently?
Yeah, so again with Sweet Cherry, I think they do a whole kind of really good sort of classics for children, and I have been working on. So last year I worked on a 10-book set. So this is 7 books, I think. This the ones that I was on last year were a 10-book set of Russian classics. Slightly heavier, slightly more complex and tricky themes to navigate. So a couple of them sort of War and Peace and Anna Karenina and A Hero of Our Time. There it is. They are, so I did those last year. Were far trickier because with Jane Austen, everything is, by the end of the book, everyone is happy and the bad guys get their comeuppance, and you feel satisfied at the end, because with some themes to navigate, sort of, and suicide and all. So hard, but just sort of really good. And then the ones I'm writing at the moment, which I think we've had clearance to say we can talk about, are American classics. So there's a whole book series of those, and so far in and Moby Dick and Call of the Wild, and I think there's about 6 more.
Yeah, but that those will be here. So not this year. So we're hopefully next year, so they'll be around. But that obviously takes quite a considerable amount of time, and the adaptation, like you said, is that's got to be nailed, and it's kind of got to be perfect. So, and what age group will that do you try and focus on a particular age group? So the Jane Austen collection is age 7 to 9. Do you think that it's that is really key for getting children on board with literature, and will the other collections that you're writing on for Sweet Cherry Publishing will that be for the same sort of age group?
Yeah, I think so. And I know a few people who are the Russian classics, they were quite concerned because Austen very grown up in those novels, and we've had to sort of tread quite a fine line with implying what happens, or sort of sometimes changing what happens. So in one scene where there is a suicide, we change it to them just, so they are pitched for the right group, and the main story arcs of all the books are still there. They're just, they're not going to upset them, basically, is how we looked at it. So yeah, I would say it all their own child and their capability to read. I mean, it could be someone younger, it could be someone older, but I think our sweet spot is around 8, 9. And boys and
yeah, no, that's great. And when you've got a nice collection like this, and with things like with this collection as well, and the ones that you're going to be writing and coming up with soon, they don't need to be read sort of in a particular order. But when you're ready and you're eager to get the next one, you've got it there then, and you've got everything, and you don't have to wait. So then you know that your child can confidently kind of come back to these books and say, well, I've read this collection and now I know. And I think you sort of mentioned a little bit earlier in the beginning that it's, it can almost be like a history lesson going back in time, and being able to explain to children about the way things were in a different era, what that means now, what the changes are, why there were different positions in society. So it's kind of like a fun sort of history lesson as well, which can support what they're learning at school.
Probably more of a kind of history than a history lesson. But when I was reading the Jane Austen books with my daughter, she was 8, 9 at the time when I was reading them to her, and she would question, why is the Pride and Prejudice so getting her daughters married, and why are they so obsessed with kind of these men that they might marry. And I was trying to explain to her that it wasn't just about finding somebody that you loved. It was also sometimes the only way that women could make sure that they were financially secure, because they couldn't work, and once their parents had died, they were sort of on their own. So it was kind of explaining how life used to be for those women back then.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's plenty of sort of knowledge and conversations that can come from books that are really, really good. And I feel that, you know, that can happen really from any age. And it's sort of, at the moment, I'm at the stage with my little one where it's like, well, why, mummy? But why? But it's nice to be able to have books as a starting point that drive those conversations and help us. I think that really does come from books. We've had a couple of questions come through. So, how long does it take you on average to write a book? I guess that's, I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of planning, especially with adapting classics. There's a lot of planning involved. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just get the really sort of set in my head. Whether that is, you know, I actually get, what I haven't mentioned before, is I get a lot of study guides. So the first thing is a novel, and I'll also get a study guide, because they're really good at breaking down into what happens when, without having to, you know, a 500-page novel. If I want to know sort of a quote from a certain character, I can guide to help. So the planning takes longer than writing a novel. Once I've got the storyline in my head, what I know I'm going to include, what I'm not going to include, then it only sort of takes about 3 or 4 days of solid writing and editing to get it done. But yeah, I'd say if I was able to sit at my desk kind of from 5 every day, it would probably take a week to do. But unfortunately, as a mum, I can't do that.
And it's nice probably sometimes to come away from it and come back to it and tackle it and stuff like that. We've got another question here from Isabel. What made you want to write a kids' book? So we sort of might have covered this a little bit at the beginning, but perhaps you missed that part. So what made you really want to focus in on children's books and children's writing?
Well, I've always written. I've always written ever since I was really young. I used to make sort of books for my dolls when I was tiny. But my first job was in children's media. My first job out of university was for Barbie magazine, which was so much fun, and it was actually a really good way of finding the right voice and the right children. And I and I worked for a company that did magazines and books, and then went freelance when I had, and just started to get asked to do more work from there, which was, you know, it's what I really loved. So anytime I got offered fiction work, I would jump on it. So I've done picture books and sort of fairy tale collections for different, and then obviously got some chapter books through another publisher, and then got approached by Sweet Cherry to do these classics. So it's been, that sounded very quick, it's been about 10 years of work to get to this point, and I feel so incredibly lucky to be able to do it. It's such a job.
That's that's really nice, and it sounds like there's going to be some more fabulous books coming as well, so that's really exciting and fantastic. It sounds like you're really inspired by your children as well, which is lovely. I'm sure they're really pleased and very proud. So
but when we asked them if they wanted to watch this, they were like, no.
I know. I was half expecting one of them to come along, and hopefully we've got some kids are joining us as well on the live. So great to have you, and thank you to everybody for all of your questions. We are coming up to the end now, but don't forget that just from everybody that's attended this live, we've got an exclusive discount for Sweet Cherry Publishing books available on the Books to Door website. So you can find all of the details on our account. And that's 15% off any Sweet Cherry books, so including the incredible Jane Austen collection and some of the wonderful books you can probably see behind me. and that's 15% discount, and it's valid for 24 hours. So the code that you need is SCP15. So that's SCP15. And that's Street Trade Publishing 15. So that's the discount that you'll get. Don't forget, it's only available for 24 hours. So now's a brilliant time to kind of stock up and get some of those classics and those favourites for your children. And there's all ages really across Sweet Cherry Publishing. So hopefully you'll find something in there as well. But we have also got 5 sets of this collection to give away. We'll be contacting winners who have joined us throughout the live sessions today to let you know if you've been successful and won a copy. So thank you very, very much. Don't forget to go and make the most of your discount, and you know, enjoy reading those. A huge thank you to you, Gemma, and to the team at Sweet Cherry Publishing for having this live event with us.
Good fun, actually. It's been really nice to kind of, because they were happened 2 years ago. It's go back and yeah, it's been lovely.
Yeah, no, it is really nice. So thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of the day, everyone. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Gemma.